In this task, we will complete the map design by adding a title, metadata, neat lines, adjusting line thicknesses for Alaska and Hawaii, and adjusting label sizes and placement. First, let's adjust the line thicknesses for Alaska and Hawaii. So in Inkscape, I'm going to select the Alaska layer, so that's the current layer. So I'm going to choose Alaska either here or choose it here. And I'm going to use the selector tool to select Alaska in the composition view. In the commands bar, I'm going to click the Edit Objects Color button, and so I don't have that listed here, so I'm going to do that. So it's the Fill and Stroke, and it's going to open up the Fill and Stroke panel. I'm going to click on the Stroke Style tab, and I'm going to set the width to 1.417, which is the same width of the state boundary lines in the lower 48. I found that state boundary thickness by clicking the Edit Paths by Node button, so that's this one here, choosing the lower 48, choosing an individual state, and you can see it's 1.417. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to do the same for Hawaii, so I'm going to choose Hawaii as my active layer, select Hawaii, and change the stroke to 1.417 and hit enter on the keyboard. And now you can see they have the same line thicknesses as the other states. So now let's change the placement of the Florida, Louisiana, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Vermont labels so that they are more centrally located and or easier to read. So to accomplish this, we're going to need to ungroup the lower 48 so we can manipulate the individual label objects. And so in the meantime, I'm going to lock my Alaska and Hawaii layers so I don't accidentally select them, and choose my lower 48 states. And so I'm going to select the lower 48, and let me recenter everything here. And I'm going to click the Ungroup button multiple times until I see, so the first time may take just a moment, until I see little select boxes show up around my label. So I'm going to click on Group again. Not see anything yet. So I'm going to click on Group again. Nothing yet. And this may take multiple tries because we're having to ungroup. There we go. Now you can see I got all my select boxes around my layers. And so just to make that easier for you to see, I'm going to zoom in here into the Northeast United States. You can see now I've got my selection boxes around my labels. And so I'm going to select press the escape key on my keyboard. So let me go back and just hit escape or click off of the United States, and that's going to unselect everything. And so we zoomed into the northeastern states, and so you can see here we have, for instance, these three labels and these two labels here are touching or overlapping too much, so it's hard to read. And so what I want to do is I want to select the Vermont label and the associated white ellipse, and we're going to mess with that one first. So I'm going to select the white ellipse and then hold down the shift key on my keyboard and select the VT. So you can see that I have two separate selections going on here. I could also drag a box around the label and ellipse, but make sure I don't select other labels or states. And you know you're successful in your selections when you see those two boxes. So now that I have them selected, I always want them to be together, so I'm going to regroup those actually. I'm going to click Group, and now I cannot select them individually. So whether I click on the VT or click on the ellipse, it's always going to select them together, and that's what I want. So I'm going to move this to the top part of the state, so say right there. And then I'm going to select the New Hampshire and the New Hampshire ellipse, and I'm going to group those. Oops, I did a little bit too much there. Let me get rid of that. Group those, and I'm going to move that to the southern part of the state. So now they're out of the way and they're not overlapping. So maybe right there would be reasonable. And so now we're going to move the Maryland, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Delaware labels to more reasonable locations. And so again, I'm going to zoom in real close here so I can actually get access to everything very precisely. I'm going to group the Massachusetts label together and move it up. Just let's see here, what would be a good place to put it? Maybe over here would be reasonable. Grab the Rhode Island and its ellipse and group that one. And I'm going to move that one down here, sort of off the state, and then Connecticut, group that one and move that to the left, say right here. And now I don't have nearly as much overlap. I can more clearly see what's going on, and life is generally much better when it comes to labeling. Maybe move that there. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in the video. You can nitpick on yours. So now let's move down. So I'm going to zoom out. Zoom out just a little bit. And I'm going to go down here to Maryland and Delaware. I'm going to deal with them in the same way. So Maryland, select. Oops, I keep clicking too quickly. Sorry about that. Okay. There we go. Group. And I'm going to move that to the left. I'm going to grab Delaware and group that one and move that, say, to where the D is just on the state. That looks pretty reasonable there. And I think I've got them all. And so I'm going to zoom back out to the entire page. And now Florida and let's see, Louisiana. Let's take a look at those and see what's going on. So you can see Florida's kind of half on, half off the state. So again, I'm going to zoom in close. I'm going to select both of those, group them together so that they stick around together, and move that to, say, the center of the state. And then I'm going to zoom into Louisiana, and we're going to take care of that one in the same way. And so let's just put that, say, here. That'd be somewhat reasonable. Okay, so now let's turn our attention to the labels for Alaska and Hawaii. They're really quite small. In fact, it's really hard to see here. So I'm going to zoom in, and you can just see there's the Alaska one and there's the Hawaii one. They're really, really tiny. And so the reason why they're that small is because they were scaled down when imported from task 3. So let's put these labels in the appropriate size again. I'm going to show you two methods to accomplish this task. The first thing that we can do is let's start with Alaska. Let me zoom into Alaska here. And I'm going to select it. I'm going to ungroup. First I've got to unlock it, the layer. So let me unlock Alaska and Hawaii, and since I'm going to be working with these guys, I'm going to select it, and then I'm going to click ungroup again multiple times. Oh, that's going to get annoying quickly, until I see my selection box around the labels. I'm getting closer. I've got the background grouped. Still going. There we go. Okay, so now that I can, now that I have everything selected, I'm going to hit Escape to unselect everything just to be safe here. And I'm now going to zoom in and select the Alaska ellipse and the path, and I'm going to press the delete key on my keyboard to get rid of it. I could have also, let me bring it back. I could have also selected it and right-clicked on it and clicked delete. That would do the same thing. So now I'm going to zoom to the whole page again, and now I'm going to zoom into Louisiana. Okay, and let me unlock that lower 48 layer because I'm going to get access to it now. And I'm going to select the Louisiana ellipse and label, and I'm going to duplicate it. And so I can press this button here, or press Control D, and that creates a copy right on top of it. So if I move, you can see that I now have two LAs. So with it still selected, I'm going to zoom to the whole page, and then I'm going to drag it over on top of Alaska. But oh no, the label disappeared, right? So the reason why this is happening is because the duplicated object is still in the lower 48s layer, and you can see that's because that's my selected layer here. So we're going to need to move the duplicated label up to the Alaska layer so that it displays correctly. So with that label still selected, I'm going to hold the Shift key and press the page up key 1, 2 times. There we go. And now you can see that it's on the Alaska layer, and you may need to press it more times depending on how you selected the Louisiana. So it could be 2, 3, or 4, just depending on how you have things set. So notice that every time I press that Shift and page up or down, it changed right here, my active group. So here I'm moving it up, and there I'm moving it down. Right? And so that's how I move objects between layers. Now if you happen to unselect the label and it's hidden behind Alaska, I could just turn off the Alaska layer visibility, and if the label was still there, so let me say move it to Hawaii or another, then I would actually still see it. I'm going to turn it back on now. And there's my Louisiana label on Alaska. Alright, so now let's zoom in close to Alaska. And so the problem is and this is unfortunate, is that the Louisiana text actually is not editable. We actually cannot change it. So we're going to have to kind of recreate it inside of Inkscape. So I'm going to click the Create Text tool. I'm going to click above the Louisiana label, just anywhere, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to type LA, and LA is going to show up really, really big. But now I want to edit that text, so I'm going to click Text, Text and Font from the menu bar, and I'm going to set the following options. The first one being using the same font, so that's going to be my Arial font. There it is there. And then I'm going to click Apply and Close. So now I've got the same font. Alright, so now I'm going to try to make these the same size. And so to do that, I first need to align them. So I'm going to select the original Louisiana label, and I'm going to ungroup it. So ungroup. And now I can get access to the individual. Let me hit escape on the keyboard there. The individual LA. And so I'm going to select the original LA in my new one. And I'm going to open up the alignment panel now by clicking, let's see, Align and Distribute. And I'm going to align them to the lower left-hand corner of each other. And so I'm going to set Relative to Selection, and I'm going to say to the Align Bottom Edges and Align Left Edges. And so now they're exactly overlap on top of each other. And so now I'm going to select the larger LA only. I'm going to hold down the Control key again, and I'm going to scale it down until it's just about the same size. And there we go, we've got a match. I'm going to go back to my text and font dialog and notice that it's about 18. So I think that's what we were originally at. So I'm going to choose 18 and hit Apply, and they're pretty much spot on the same size. So perfect. So I'm going to move my editable text out of the way, and now I'm going to delete the original paths and get it off the map. I am then going to line the ellipse and the text up. So I'm going to select them both, and with the Align and Distribute panel still up, I'm going to click Center on Vertical Axis and Center on a Horizontal Axis. I am then going to group them together because now I want them to be the same thing, and I am going to move it into the center of Alaska. And so it looks pretty reasonable, but there's two things. One, it's LA instead of AK, so I'm going to need to change that, so let me ungroup it again. And two, the ellipse is kind of crowding it, so if I double click on the LA, it makes it editable again, and I can actually change that to AK. And now I'm going to make the ellipse larger by selecting the ellipse only, holding down the Shift key, and then I'm going to make it a little bit larger. And the Shift key makes the ellipse change size relative to its center point. And so I'm going to just make it maybe about like that. That's pretty reasonable. And now that I have them happy, I'm going to, and roughly the same size, I'm then now going to group them. And now I've got my label for Alaska done. So that was quite a few steps. And let me pull it down there, right there. And so now let's try a second method to resize Hawaii's label that's really much quicker but may not produce completely accurate results. So I'm going to first zoom into Hawaii here. So let me zoom in there. And I'm going to ungroup Hawaii again multiple times, just like I have in the past, so I get access to the labels. So I'm going to ungroup, 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 ungroup. Okay, there's my selections. I now have access to it. Okay, so now I'm going to select and group the Hawaii label and ellipse. So to do that, I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to select just those two, and I'm going to group those together. Alright, so now I'm going to zoom to the page, and I'm going to zoom into Indiana, because the H and the I and the N are roughly going to be the same width, so I want to choose a label that's about the same width. And I'm going to select both the IN and the ellipse. I'm going to click Edit, Copy. Okay. So now I'm going to zoom back to Hawaii. I'm going to zoom in close to my label here. There we go. And now I'm going to select the label again. And now I'm going to click Edit, Paste Size from the menu bar. And voila, it now makes it as large as the Indiana label. So let me see if I can zoom in to make it a little bit easier for you to see here. Both of them, yeah. So now I've got two labels pretty much the same size. And so let's discuss the downsides to doing this. I mean, obviously the upside is that's a lot less steps. But the downside is that while we chose the Indiana label because it was roughly the same shape and character width as HI, you know, when we scale it, the font size should be very close and the label should not be stretched unusually. However, had we chosen, say, like California, we would notice stretching of the HI label because the C and the A are significantly wider than the H and the I. So the previous long method is a safer choice. However, this method will work in a pinch, but please check for consistency between like items, so labels in this case, when you use this method. So since we have the Hawaii label in a reasonable point, now we're going to move to adding a neat line around the entire map, and also neat lines around Alaska and Hawaii. And so I'm going to create a new layer. So let me close a few panels here so I can get back to my layers list. I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to call this one Neat Lines. I'm going to add it above current. And if I need to move it, by the way, I can hit the up and down arrows, and you can see this puts it all the way at the bottom. This moves it up one, down one, and all the way at the top. So now I have my Neat Lines all the way at the top. And with the Neat Lines layer set as the active layer, I'm going to select Create Rectangles and Squares tool. So again, I have Neat Lines as the active layer. I'm going to zoom to my whole page here. And I am going to click and drag and make a box that's just inside the page border. Nice big box. And your box may be a different color. That's fine. So with the box still selected, I'm going to edit the object's color and gradient and stroke width. So I'm going to do that by clicking Fill and Stroke. And on the Fill tab, I'm going to click the X for No Paint. That makes it empty on the inside. For the Stroke Paint tab, I'm going to set the RGB value. So I'm going to choose first the flat color, and the RGB values will all be 0, and the alpha is going to be 255. And this is going to make a black stroke that's opaque. I also need to set the opacity to 0%. I'm sorry, 100% to make that happen, and it was. So for the stroke style, I'm going to set the width first to millimeters, and I'm going to set it to 0.75 millimeters. I'm going to hit enter, and this creates a reasonably thick neat line, as you can see here. Now we're going to align the neat line to the center of the page. So I'm going to select the neat line, and then going to open up the Align and Distribute panel, and I'm going to set it relative to page and center it to the center vertically and to the center horizontally. So now I'm going to create another neat line around Alaska. So again, making sure my Neat Lines layer is still the active layer. Oops, and I see that it may not be the top layer, so let me go back and set that as the, yeah, it is the top layer. Okay, I'm going to use the rectangle and square tool again. I'm going to drag a box around Alaska. That looks good right there. And I want to make sure I give it a little bit of breathing room, of course. So let's change the fill properties again. So let me open those up. So Fill and Stroke. And I'm going to set the following. So for the fill, I want no fill. For the paint, I want, again, solid color 000255. And for the stroke style, I want 0.5 millimeters. And so the reason why I'm making this neat line thinner than the other neat line is I want to give an appearance of hierarchy in the map. And so we're going to make those interior neat lines 1/4 millimeter thinner than the map's neat line. Okay, so now I want to line them up. So I'm going to select both the outer neat line and the inner neat line. Use the alignment, Align and Distribute, and I'm going to align them to the left and to the bottom, since we're in the bottom left. But notice it moved that one neat line to the other one. I didn't want that to happen. So I'm going to undo, and this is where the relative to comes in important. So I'm going to choose relative to first selected. So I'm going to first select the outer neat line and then select the inner neat line. And now when I do bottom and left alignment, it moves the Alaska one, not the overall neat line. Okay, and now if Alaska were no longer my neat line, I'd want to move Alaska by selecting it and moving it around, but I don't need to do that. Everything looks good for me. So now let's create a neat line around Hawaii. However, we're not going to create a boring square neat line. We're going to create a neat line that follows Hawaii's shape and therefore won't crowd Texas on the map. And so to do that, I'm going to click the Draw Bezier Curve and Straight Lines tool in the toolbox. And so that's this one here. And I'm going to zoom in closer so I can see what I'm doing a little better. And using that tool, I'm going to click once to the right of Hawaii and on the map neat line. Hold down the Control key, so let's do that. I'm going to click once to the right of Hawaii on the neat line. That's going to snap it to it. I'm going to hold down the Control key because that's going to snap me to 15 degree increments. So you can see it kind of snaps. Or if I let go of Control, you can see it's very smooth. This is Control on. Okay, and I'm going to come up and I'm going to right click. Oops, I'm sorry. What am I doing here? I'm going to click, double click, there we go, to complete that line segment. I am then going to left click again on the box. You'll see it kind of turns red, and I'm going to draw, holding down Control again, going to draw a line to say here, and double click in that, and then click once again, holding down the Control key to keep me to 15 degree increments, and I'm going to end on the Alaska neat line by double clicking. And so now I've got a real nice kind of curved, oh not curved, non-ordinary square neat line. And so to make sure they're all set to the same width, I can hold down, if I select one, notice they're all selecting at the same time. That's because I made sure that I always started the next segment at, exactly on the end of the previous segment. So again, let me show you. If I click and then double click and then click again, see how that square turns red underneath my cursor? That's going to make it the same stroke. It's actually going to connect it together for me. That's what I want to have happen. So let me go ahead and delete that one. So I'm going to go to the fill and stroke properties and make sure that the stroke style is in millimeters, and I'm going to need to set the stroke to the same width as Alaska, and so that's going to be 0.5 millimeters. And so now they're all the same. And so just one last check to make sure everything is looking good. I'm going to align the Hawaii neat line to the same to the bottom with the overall neat line. So again, I'm selecting the overall neat line first, then the Alaska neat line second, and I go to align and distribute and I align them to the bottoms. And then I'm going to make sure it aligns with Alaska, so I'm choosing Alaska first since I have first selected here relative to, then Hawaii second, and let's see here. Yeah, actually I can't do that, so I'm actually just going to zoom in and make sure, sorry I forgot, that they don't touch. So I'm going to click it and you can see it just barely comes over, so I'm going to press the right arrow on my keyboard and that just moved things over a little too much, so I'm just going to move it manually. There we go, and now everything should line up. And just to make sure it's back with the bottom neat line, I'm going to select it, select the Y neat line, and align those to the bottom. And now I should be good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and lock the neat line layer now that I'm done with it. I don't want those to go anywhere. I'm also going to lock Alaska, Hawaii, and the lower 48 because I don't want to break those. Now I'm going to create a new layer called Title and Metadata. Okay, and I'm going to make sure that's the active one, and I'm going to use my Create Text tool, and I'm going to click above the lower 48 states. I'm going to enter in my main title, so this will be the United States of America. Okay, and so the title should be centered on the page, And so to make sure of that, instead of just guessing, I'm going to pull it down to a reasonable location here. I'm going to bring back up my alignment and distribute, and I'm going to align it relative to the page, and I'm going to align it in the vertical axis. So now I know it's exactly in the center of the page. And then I'm using the select tool to put it about halfway between the top and the United States, and again aligning it back to the stage when I'm done. Now, you can never align too much. Okay, so now I'm going to create some metadata. So in the bottom right hand corner of the map, I'm going to create some new text, and I'm going to say map author and then your name, so Richard Smith for instance, since that's my name. And then we got all the data from Natural Earth, so I'm going to say made with Natural Earth, free data at naturalearth.com. Okay, but of course that text is way too large. So with the text selected, I'm going to once again click text and font. I'm going to change it to Arial, and I'm going to make it 10 point on the font size, and I'm going to center the lines. That's going to be the layout. So I'm going to click apply. I'm going to move it to the bottom right hand corner, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the title. Let me zoom back here, and for the title, go to text and font, and make sure that it too is Arial font. And if I wanted to change the size, I could do that. So let me zoom back down to the metadata, and yeah, that looks pretty reasonable. I think I'll leave it all right there. Okay, so that's it. We're done designing the map. Your map should generally look like this. And so I'm going to take a moment and save the map. So click File, Save. And then we're going to export it to a PDF. So I'm going to click File, Save a Copy. And I'm going to choose a PDF as the output format, so portable document format. And I'm going to save that on my computer in my Lab 3 directory. So I'm going to name it Colorful Map of the USA, or anything else I want to save it as. Click Save. I'm going to keep the default export options. And now if I open up my Lab directory, I can see that I have Colorful Map of the USA.pdf, and I could open it up in a PDF viewer and I'd see what we're seeing here.